The history of Nod-Krai has finally been unveiled through the new artifact set Long Night's Oath. This set reveals a ton of information from the region's initial conquest by Snezhnaya, the impact of the Cataclysm, and even the first appearance of the Doctor in Nod-Krai. It also provides our first glimpse into who may possibly be the First Cryo Archon, the predecessor of the Tsaritsa. So without wasting any time, let's get right into it. Long before the Tsaritsa ruled Snezhnaya, the land was governed by the Tsar of all Fae, most likely the very first Cryo Archon. During this ancient era, the nobles of Snezhnaya were rather authoritarian, which eventually led to the conquest of the region we now know as Nod-Krai. Around the same time, a mad monk, wanting to steal powers left behind by the moons, devised a treacherous plan and presented it to the Tsar, after which the Moon Children, whom I can only presume to be the Frostmoon Scions, were scattered and driven down divergent paths. The text also suggests that the Tsar attempted to shatter the false sky, but this endeavor pushed him to the brink of madness, being described as driven to the edge of delusion. Now fast forward several years before the Cataclysm, we begin the story of Nod-Krai's autonomy. It starts with a man from mainland Snezhnaya who had ventured down south. During his time in Nod-Krai, he befriended someone who dreamed of creating a paradise. Tragically, this friend later became an infamous bandit across Teyvat and was eventually executed for his crimes. After his friend's death, the man vowed to fulfill his friend's dream of paradise. When the Cataclysm struck, all nations were besieged by abyssal monsters, and Snezhnaya was no exception. However, Snezhnaya's inability to defend its distant territories left Nod-Krai to fend for itself. In a desperate bid to protect the region, the man borrowed power from the Frostmoon Scions and successfully repelled the abyss. For his heroic actions, he became known as the Torchforger, the first leader of Nod-Krai, the one who raised the first beam of light in a time of darkness. Determined to create the paradise that his friend envisioned, the Torchforger traveled to Snezhnaya's royal court. By this time, the first Cryo Archon, the Tsar, had been replaced by the Tsaritsa. The Torchforger pleaded for Nod-Krai's autonomy, which the Tsaritsa granted, on the condition that Nod-Krai would serve as Snezhnaya's first line of defense against future threats, and thus was the official founding of Nod-Krai. After it received its autonomy, Nod-Krai enjoyed a period of peace. But little over a century later, they were attacked once again by a mysterious force called the Wild Hunt. It's very likely related to the Abyss, as descriptions mention folktales surrounding it being a force from beyond this world seeking to harvest souls or lingering phantoms from the ancient nightmare, most likely alluding to monsters from the Cataclysm. But this attack is not like any other abyssal invasions that we've seen so far. The Wild Hunt had a leader, someone who was pulling the strings behind the scenes. So this was all coordinated, and not an isolated attack of abyssal monsters. The soldiers of Nod-Krai, or rather the warriors of the Nightingale, prepared for battle, and as they were doing so, the Fatui arrived at Nod-Krai's northern gate. Their leader, a man wearing a mask with a mocking laugh, perhaps suggesting an individual like Pierro, reminded them that Snezhnaya won't be able to bear the weight of their defeat, and that the Fatui won't be helping them either. They would only take care of the aftermath if Nod-Krai's warriors fail. The battle was extremely gruesome. What was once a paradise turned into hell. The Fatui soldiers were waiting at the northern gate for the command to march forward, but before any such signal was declared, there was one warrior amongst the Fatui who could not stand by and watch innocent people die. So he marched forward against his orders to save as many people as he can. This individual is described as being a contingent of the Tsaritsa, whose loyalty did not lie with any of the Harbingers, and someone who vowed to create a pure new world beneath the glimmering stars. Since he went against his orders, he was deemed a criminal, someone who committed treason against the Tsaritsa. But here's the real kicker. It seems that the second Harbinger, Dottore, was there as well. And while the soldier deviated from his plans, the Doctor was seemingly unbothered by it as they had accomplished what they sought out to do. One theory I may propose is that the Fatui sought to take back control of Nod-Krai, knowing that without their help, Nod-Krai would inevitably fall. And once it did, the Fatui would swoop in, retaking control so Dottore and possibly others can set up their operations there. From what we know about Nod-Krai from Lieben and Helka, Nod-Krai isn't exactly in control of the Fatui, but in fact suggests it's in a state of lawlessness. But at the same time, the Fatui aren't exactly hiding their presence there. It's very likely that the Fatui didn't really care enough to actively govern the place, but they needed this to happen so they can get entry into Nod-Krai and set up official operations there. As far as the Wild Hunt goes, it's likely to have been an immensely powerful horde of abyssal monsters, summoned by someone. In the description of the Undying One's Morning Bell, it said that the foul force which summoned it hid deep within the forest. Guess who else is in the forests of Nod-Krai? The Frostmoon Scions. This could have been an act of vengeance conducted by one of them after the actions of the sorcerer and the Tsar centuries or possibly even millennia ago scattered their people. Other possibilities for the summoner include those who are intimately tied to abyssal power. Suspects including but not limited to one of the 5 sinners of Khaenri'ah or even the Abyss Order. And who could the Fatui soldier be who went against his commands and tried to help the people of Nod-Krai in their time of crisis? The artifact it comes from is called the Undying One's Morning Bell, perhaps suggesting this person was an immortal, perhaps even a cursed Khaenri'an. In the text, this individual seems to care deeply about life and saving as many people as possible. This individual is also said to have had a dark blade and is someone who swore to hunt down the Wild Hunt. So who do you think the rogue soldier could be? Let me know your thoughts in the comments and consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.